Hello, everybody. Thanks again for joining us on another edition of Spincast. Excited to have Katherine RANZENBERGER here from Central Michigan University on board for this Spincast today. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm good. How are you?
I am hanging in there. I am hanging in there. Thank you. Katherine is the esports head coach and advisor on campus there. So really excited to hear a little bit more about her story, her journey, as well as obviously the campus life there for Central Michigan and their esports club team. So without further ado, Katherine, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about how you kind of got into the esports space in general, but then how that led to the opportunity there with Central Michigan.
Yeah, so I actually have been into gaming for a while. I played League of Legends before seasons were a thing. So that's probably 10, 11 years ago or so. And so that was kind of my first step into the esports realm. And that was really everybody's first step into the esports realm because that's what helped create esports. But when I went off to college, I actually am a two-time Central Michigan alum. I have both my undergrad and my master's from there. And when I got to college, it was a really good way to be able to connect with people, via online gaming, because that was really starting to gain popularity. Flash to, I guess, when I started to get my master's, I really started to get a little bit more involved with finding out what esports programs are like across the country. And I actually did my master's thesis on esports and academics, and how you can integrate the two. And that I started in admissions at Central Michigan about a year and a half ago. And when I started there, they started talking about bringing me on to do the marketing materials for our esports program. About a year later, so about 6 months ago, they actually brought me on as the head coach because of the kind of leadership standards that we have. And I really love interacting with our students and being able to see them grow and get these usable skills that employers really want while they're doing something that they love in a very unconventional way, or a typically unconventional way. It's wonderful to watch these students grow and learn and change and hit these goals that they plan for themselves at the beginning of the semester, and just being able to be a part of it. I consider myself very fortunate.
Awesome.
It was an unconventional way to step into the position of head coach and advisor, but I'll take it and I love it.
Good deal. Good deal. Yeah, nothing more fulfilling than helping a student achieve their goals, that's for sure. So talk a
Absolutely.
little bit about, I'm going to kind of backtrack. You wrote a thesis on the impact of academics alongside of esports. From your perspective, talk a little bit about that. I think for our audience, especially for parents, understanding the dynamics between the two would be pretty interesting.
So when you come to any sort of college situation, a lot of the work that you're going to be doing is preparing you for your future career. That's both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. A lot of the stuff that I work on with our students is working on their communication skills and, stepping up and being leaders themselves, and taking risks and making mistakes while they are in basically what is a learning lab. So there's also so many different ways that esports can integrate into every single major on campus that we have at Central Michigan. So we are actually one of the leaders in journalism and broadcasting in the nation. And our students, I'm hoping to start partnering with some more broadcasting students to actually bring their skills that they learned in the classroom into, this real world experience by broadcasting our games via live stream, either on Twitch or Mixer. So those are things, we need producers all the time. We need people that can manage. So our management and business students can come in and help out. There's so many different ways that you can take these things that you're learning in the classroom and actually integrate it into esports in some way, shape, or form. And it's honestly really cool. to watch it happen. For me personally, with my thesis, watching my research come in and seeing how I think literally every single major on our campus, and we have 200 or more undergrad programs here at Central Michigan. Seeing how it can integrate into every single one of those is really fascinating to me. And I'm actually going to start looking at doctoral programs so that way I can do further research.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, there's such a wide variety that unconventionally people would not think of in terms of career paths that esports can provide. I mean, architecture, for example, people are going to need arenas. So many more universities are looking to build out space. So things like that, engineering, design, et cetera. So just to list one of maybe a dozen. But talk a little bit about, if you will, the program you have there. I think it's been up and running for just about 5 years or so. Go ahead.
I was going to say, our esports program has actually been a thing since about the mid 2000s. Okay. So we've had a club off and on for a while. It's, of course, started out with like Super Smash Brothers because that was huge on the GameCube, still is huge actually in the competitive world. But we had students come in and do that. And this past year, we actually have gotten a lot more support from the university for our club teams. And we just joined the National Association of Collegiate Esports. So we are now NACE affiliated, which is really cool. They're the governing body of pretty much all esports for the collegiate level. But there's, a lot of ways that we are growing and being able to meet our students' needs. We actually, speaking of space, just got our dedicated space on campus, and I'm really excited to get in there and have our students in there gaming. Brand new PCs, they're beautiful. The space is beautiful, nice. And this is technically only our temporary space too. So we will be getting a full space eventually, but that's something that we definitely are going to need people with those skills to help us make possible.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let me ask you this, talk a little bit about the team makeups, meaning what types of games are you playing at the most competitive level? And below that, are there clubs and opportunities for others that may not be able to compete at that highest level to still come in and socially play with their peers?
Yeah, absolutely. So we currently support League of Legends, Overwatch, Rocket League, Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, and CSGO. Sorry, there's a lot that we're supporting right now. But I mean, students can come in, they can join our Discord server and start meeting other students. Actually, our club president, who just graduated this past May, and I'm so proud of him. He actually started making friends here on campus by joining our esports club and our competitive gaming club. It was a way that he really connected with other people and kind of started to build out that support system. And he's definitely deeply going to be missed. He's been great. And honestly, whenever any of my students graduate, it's one of those things. I just went through like that first graduation cycle and watching them like leave the nest, I was like getting emotional, but I'm so incredibly proud of the things that they've done here. And the way that they have taken those skills and can, I feel like they are more prepared to go out in the world because of the experiences that they've had with our esports program.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So let's talk a little bit about, you've been in the scene longer. So you started with League of Legends yourself. Talk a little bit about the transition between where you saw esports when you were playing to now as a coach. What are some of the better changes that have come about in this world of collegiate esports, if you will?
Yeah, there are a lot more support systems out there and a lot more awareness just in the last 10 years or so, considering like mental health and, just general well-being. I know that when I started playing League, it was known as a very toxic kind of environment, and not a lot of people wanted to be a part of it. Now, my League students are some of the most kind and caring and genuine people that I've ever met. And they just want what's best for everyone else. And that kind of cultural shift over the last 10 years has been wonderful to see. And I don't know, as a coach coming in, this is, it's great to see these students setting the standard.
Mhm.
They're trying to lead by example. They are trying to, and they are succeeding in creating a better future for gamers and a more inclusive future for gamers. I think that's wonderful. As a female gamer, it's always difficult to come in and, if somebody hears you on voice chat, they'll call you out and be like, "Oh, why is a girl playing this game?" It's ridiculous. None of my students ever do that. And I find that beautiful. They are so incredibly welcoming in every single environment, every skill level. They want you to be able to learn and succeed and become a part of the family.
Mhm. Awesome. So you brought up a couple different things. Obviously, inclusivity is huge. And then also the perception of, in some instances where video games, the atmosphere around it can be a little bit toxic. For us, we look at this as an opportunity to teach the younger generation that solid foundation of how to go about doing things the right way. Not just from the gaming side of things, but just if you want to be a solid competitor, the amount of time you should practice, how you should rest, how you should eat, nutrition, exercise, the mental health aspect of it, not getting burnt out, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But in doing all of that, I think we also teach them sportsmanship, how to congratulate your opponent instead of being frustrated or degrading them, because it's easier to do that online, a lot harder to do that certainly face to face.
Yeah.
And including every player from every genre, tall, short, black, white, male, female, doesn't matter. They all can compete if allowed to. So talk a little bit about your journey as a woman and female in gaming, and some of the things that you saw back then and some of the progressive things that are currently happening. And then I'm going to ask a two-part: as we move forward, what more would you like to see?
So when I started gaming, there was definitely a lot of gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is just like, in case people aren't familiar, it's trying to keep other people out by setting these standards, and if you don't meet them, then like they'll kind of push you away. So I ran into that a lot when it came to gaming. When I initially started, I was 17 or 18 when I started the competitive gaming, and it was difficult to kind of break into it. My students now are so impressive, I guess is the word, because they are so accepting of people, and that's something like I'm extremely proud of my students for setting that precedent of not gatekeeping, of being willing and able to bring up who they are, their skill level, their game. They really just want to see people succeed, and it's really beautiful. I literally couldn't be prouder of them because of everything that they do, and they inspire me to work on being just more inclusive every day, and just reaching out to other people and saying hi, or smiling at someone and trying to brighten their day a little bit, that kind of stuff. As a coach, it's been really wonderful meeting all of the other coaches across Michigan. I know I'm not the only woman coach either in Michigan too, at the collegiate level, which is awesome. And I think that the future of gaming is definitely more inclusive. As we go on, this world is definitely changing, and people are more likely to be in bubbles on the internet with feedback loops. But I know that my students are aware of that, and they work their hardest to constantly break free of that. A lot of them actually started avoiding social media because they don't want that kind of negativity. They want the positive light and the, the growth that comes from challenging what you once thought. And that's also what college is all about, is challenging yourself and growing. And again, couldn't be prouder of these students for doing it.
Awesome. Awesome. Sounds like you have built a culture there that is certainly something that's sustainable to create just massive success moving long term. So that's fantastic.
I hope so.
Understood. Talk a little bit about, for the students that are going to be watching this, what the day-to-day is like. What's the practice schedule like? What's the academic schedule like? How do they interloop, if you will? And then beyond that, their social lives. Obviously, this would be prior to COVID-19. Esports still is the one sport that, even during this pandemic, is something that can still be participated in. But prior to that, how did it all look?
So we actually had two teams that we were supporting in the spring, just as a kind of step forward into this. So we had, I believe, 26 students competing between the two teams. We supported Overwatch and League of Legends in the spring for like the more competitive. And so day to day, students would go to class, they'd go to work. They, of course, all have to be full-time students. They have to be in good academic standing. Whatever scholarships they have, they need to maintain. And those are just, standards across the board for everyone at the university. You don't want to lose a scholarship that's helping you get your degree. But we would practice 2 times a week for 3 hours a night with other groups around the nation doing what's called a scrim. So just setting up like a quick couple of games with another team. And actually the Michigan Esports Conference just kicked off recently, and I'm hoping that we can join that eventually and have a little bit more solid practice schedule. But now that we have our own space and more teams that we're supporting, it is going to be a little bit later of a night for some, but I'm trying to keep students to specific practice schedules, coming in one night a week to actually practice in person, because that does make a huge difference. And then, going home and having them scheduled out for, the different nights and just hanging out and playing with their friends. It's definitely, some students have an easier time at balancing it. Some students, of course, have the growing challenges of, trying to balance college and a social life and practice and everything else. And that takes a lot of concentration to actually figure out. Ignore my cat, I'm so sorry. She's coming to hang out. She's adorable, and she's also a fan of esports. But it takes practice, just like, when you're playing games, you got to practice actually taking care of yourself, and you have to practice being able to balance a social life and all that. And I don't ever want my students to lose out on that either. They're in college. They need that college experience. They need the skills that they're going to learn from going out and hanging out with friends in person. And, it can't all be games all the time. And that's actually specifically why on Fridays, my practices that I run are more team building. So we do something that is not the traditional gaming on a computer. We've done everything from D&D to playing volleyball in the pools on campus, just something to get them active and not thinking about the game either. It helps a lot with building those relationships within the teams, but also kind of just letting go of any frustration. If you were tilting earlier in a game or whatever, you can just breathe for a second and take it all in. So definitely care a lot about their mental health and the stability that they have through there. So I don't know. I hope that kind of answered the question.
It did. It did.
It's kind of a roundabout way.
No, it definitely did. That's awesome. Some of the things that you create around it as a team building format and so forth. And for our audience, from the mental health, I know you brought that up a couple times. I'm going to dive into that in a second with the question. Esports is a little different than traditional sports in respect to some of the stress levels that can be created. The best way I can put it is, think of football, that quarterback that has to make all these quick last second decisions is on the field for approximately that drive. And then he gets to sit on the bench and kind of just take a break, rest, take it all in, and then get ready for when that offense goes back out on the field. Not so much in esports, where they're just, it's a consistent grind of that mental state is constantly grinding and going and thinking and making these split-second decisions that's going to equate to either victory or a loss. And that could get pretty stressful pretty quickly. So talk a little bit about that, the mental health aspect of things, and what you do to be cognizant for your students. Obviously, you mentioned some of the things you do with your Friday activities and things of that nature. But talk a little bit about that.
So two things. One, I definitely set up resources for all of these students to be able to, contact whoever they might need to, whether that's the counseling center or on campus or somebody online. Because first and foremost, I tell my students, your mental health and your well-being is my priority. You need to take care of yourself if you're going to be successful. And this is definitely strenuous. League of Legends games can last an hour, and that's an hour of sitting there grinding and trying to think about what your opponent is going to do and what you need to do in order to help out, your team. It is definitely mentally exhausting. But first and foremost, their mental health is my priority. And second is making sure that my students know that I have an open door policy. I don't actually have a door, but if they want to DM me on Discord or something and just talk with someone, I'm here for them. I know that it might be a different level for some people, but for me personally, I would rather my students know that they can come to me with any of these issues. They can, vent if they need to for a hot second. They can, get to know me on a human level, but also I can help them with issues. I'm not much older than them, but there's definitely a difference with your worldview from the time that you were 18 to the time that you're 28. Yeah. So kind of being able to give them that perspective sometimes helps out too. But honestly, just being able to have somebody there and knowing that somebody is there for them helps out a ton. There are really cool organizations out there like Take This, which help out with mental health and gamers specifically. Take This is great, and they have great resources out there for gamers to help remind them to take care of even just their basic health, drink water, and you can earn a point for drinking a cup of water. But a lot of people don't realize that when you're in that zone, you might forget to take a sip of water. You might forget to stand up for a second. You're focused, and organizations like that encourage you to take care of yourself are super important.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Again, I think you've established yourself as not just a coach, but obviously a mentor and a friend, which is critical, especially for these kids that are trying to figure out their way through college life as it is. So that's pretty neat. Talk a little bit about what you look for in a student joining the esports team or club. What attributes do you look for that really help establish you as a competitive team, but also makes a good teammate?
Yeah, so you have to be somebody who can communicate well, or is open to learning how to communicate better. People who are basically open. You need those basic skills of the game, League of Legends and Overwatch. You gotta, have certain ranks and everything. But if you're willing to put in the time and the effort, that openness to growth is huge. And people who aren't afraid to look a little silly too in the meantime. And that's honestly not a huge issue for a lot of gamers because they are used to sitting behind a computer screen and being exuberant or whatever. But just being open and willing to take risks. That's a huge part of it. Like I said, skill level is still a thing, but sure. you gotta be willing to take a step outside of your comfort zone too.
Good. Good deal. And we are going to run up on time here, so I'm going to go with one last question for you. Based on your experience so far with Central Michigan as a coach, your proudest moment, whether it's an event that happened, something specific that happened, whatever it may be, something that you can recollect pretty easily that to you really sticks out.
So we have this rival in state called Western Michigan University. It's the biggest rivalry that you will find in Michigan between two schools. Okay. We actually went down to their esports center and competed against their team during our esports collegiate conference. And watching the team after losing the first match come in, sit down, and figure out how they were going to communicate better and take that step towards actually winning that second game. Just watching them all come together, I don't know that I could be any prouder of those students in that moment. It's so wonderful to see. These are students that are stepping up. They're taking the chance to try something different with like a hero choice or a character choice. They are learning and growing, and to watch them actually put those skills into action was so heartwarming. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And those are the moments that I live for as a coach.
Awesome. Who ended up winning the match?
So we actually went 2-0. 2-1. So we lost the first one, won the second one, won the third one. So
you guys came out victorious. At what school was this again?
Yep.
Western
Michigan.
Western Michigan lost to Central Michigan on their home court.
Yep.
It was Western Michigan. I'm just going to keep rubbing that in. That's all. I'm just rubbing it in.
They lost. Fine.
Oh, well. What can you do? Good deal. Good deal. Well, Katherine, awesome to have you on. Thank you so very much again for your time. It is sincerely appreciated. Would love to follow back up in the fall once things hopefully are somewhat back to normal, just to kind of touch base, see how you guys are going as a group, see what new and exciting things may be happening on campus. That you've got your own area too. I think that's pretty cool. But again, we appreciate it here at Stay Plugged In. Thank you so much for being on our Spincast, and we wish you certainly all the best moving forward.
Thank you so much. You too.